In this video, we're going to talk about knuckleballs. Why, as an amateur player, you should not be wasting time throwing a knuckleball in games, and why it's not a viable developmental strategy for young pitchers. All right, so I know I'm going to get a lot of comments, and this is going to be controversial for some of you who really love the knuckleball, but I've been around the game a long time. I also cited my sources. I have a good friend who was a conventional pitcher. He made it to the major leagues, and he had such a good knuckleball, just playing catch, just screwing around, like in spring training every year with his club, that one day after he made it to the major leagues, didn't pitch well and was released or was sent back down. They said, hey, we know you've had a really good knuckleball, and we'd like you to try being a knuckleball pitcher in the minor leagues. Do you want to do this? If you'd like to do that, we'll keep you. If not, we're going to get rid of you. So he and I had a pretty in-depth conversation before I made this video because I wanted his take on it, and we basically share the same view. And he, as a former knuckleball pitcher, he tried to make this conversion in the minor leagues, and it was the most difficult thing he said he's ever had to do. And it's by far the most difficult pitch to learn, bar none. He now is a scout and still advises players to not waste their time trying to be a knuckleballer. So let's talk about some of those reasons why that's the case. So number one, the big question is, if you were 12 years old and you're like, I'm going to be a knuckleballer, the question is why? Like, why would you not just try to be a conventional pitcher anyway? The question is, why would you abandon the track of being a conventional pitcher, which you have full control over when you're young? You'll get better every year. You'll grow up. You'll improve your mechanics, improve your off-speed stuff, throw harder. Why would you abandon that to be a knuckleball pitcher? It's totally fine to throw a knuckleball, and this is how everyone pretty much experiences it, to throw it when you're playing catch. Just screw around with it is something you do whenever you touch a ball. That's totally fine. But to be a full-time knuckleballer, you have to commit to it. You have to throw it all the time. You have to throw it in games, and it's a very different set of mechanics. The amount of pitchers that can throw a really hard knuckleball are extremely few. Most pitchers will only be able to do it, and most pitchers can't even do it this way, at like 60 to 70 miles per hour. And that takes a much slower, different set of mechanics than conventional pitching mechanics. And this is what my friend struggled with so much. He was throwing in the low 90s as a conventional pitcher, and then suddenly he's out there throwing 65 mile per hour knuckleballs. And what you learn quickly is that you can't toggle between the two. You can't go 90-90, curveball, knuckleball. It just doesn't work. The mechanics are very, very different. And that's one of the key things to understand. And so for young pitchers, you have to ask, why would I waste developmental time? Because you can only throw so much in a day, and you can throw a lot more knuckleballs than you could, full speed regular pitches. But if you only have say an hour to throw today, why would you spend 30 minutes of it doing knuckleballs and 30 minutes of conventional, when that whole hour of conventional practice would yield a lot more results and potentially get you somewhere with it? The other thing that's really, really difficult is that we don't have a good way to evaluate knuckleballs compared to other stuff. With a conventional pitcher, we know if you're 13 years old and you're throwing 75, you throw very hard for your age. We can look at your mechanics and say he's got good mechanics, or he's got a couple things to work on. We can look at your curveball. We know what a good 13-year-old curveball looks like. We know what a good changeup looks like. Hitters will tell us too. As a 13-year-old knuckleball pitcher, if you're successful against 13-year-olds throwing a knuckleball, does that mean you'll be successful within high school? Does that mean it'll be a good enough pitch in college? The extrapolation and projection of a pitcher's abilities is much more straightforward with conventional stuff. We can say, if this high school or this college pitcher throws 92 miles per hour, we know that gives him or her a really good chance of being successful at the pro level. We know that a curveball of a certain quality gives you a certain percentage of chance of being successful. That's why recruiting is relatively straightforward. We can say with confidence that if you throw 95, you have a very good chance of getting people out. So if I was a college coach and I went to watch a high school pitcher throw knuckleballs, even if he had a good game, I'd say, I don't know if that knuckleball is going to get college hitters out. All I'm seeing is him getting not very good high school hitters out. Is that going to play at D1 or D2 or D3 or JUCO? How do I know? Because 50 or 60 mile per hour knuckleballs or 70 mile per hour knuckleballs, they may or may not work from one day to the next. It's a very inconsistent pitch. Mentally and physically, you have to be very resilient, because you can walk 5 batters with it one day. If you look back at Tim Wayfield's career, he has very good days and very terrible days. And once the knuckleball releases out of your hand, you don't know where it's going. Catcher doesn't either. Hitter doesn't either. And that's why you can throw right for the middle of the plate and it can break out of the plate. You can throw it off the plate and it breaks into the plate. You can throw it in the same location 2 times in a row and it breaks 2 different locations each time. You can throw it a little bit poorly, it doesn't break at all, and it gets whacked. The knuckleball is so unpredictable and difficult to throw that it's difficult to scout just the same. And so to have a young pitcher go from 10U all the way up throwing knuckleballs as that's the way he pitches, it's really, really rare, and it would be a difficult thing for coaches at every level to give him the innings that he would need to develop, because there's so much uncertainty and so many ups and downs. And it still begs the question of, why don't you just pitch conventionally and have fun and learn it that way? Like, why are we doing this at 13U? And so that's why that one track of just the traditional, like, start as a kid, develop until you're an adult, that track, you never see knuckleball pitchers do that. And so the other track is, okay, I'm a 50-year-old guy and I love knuckleballs, so I go out and I practice them with my buddies, or I just throw them in my backyard, and I think I have a pretty good one. Why won't someone sign me? You hear from these people, and maybe someone's, like one of you people are watching this right now. Here's the thing. Number one, just because you throw a good knuckleball in the backyard doesn't mean you can do it every time you go out there. And so if you were, as a 50-year-old guy, coming to a pro camp, which there are some open pro trial camps you could go to, you're going to get 12 pitches to throw, right? That's how it works. It's a cattle call. They get 300 guys go out, everyone throws. And the easiest thing for those scouts to say is, like, does anyone here throw really hard? If you go out there and throw 98 miles per hour, you might get a chance, actually, right? Because they know, like, hey, if this guy can, like, do anything and throw strikes, he throws 98, he can maybe get pro hitters out with that. But if you go out there and throw 12 really good knuckleballs, well, what do the next 12 look like? It's 60 miles per hour, and like, how do we project that? That's why they don't sign guys like that. The other thing is, we don't know if you can do the other things well at all. We don't know if we can trust you on a pro baseball field. The pro baseball game is very fast. To take some 50-year-old person out of civilian life who is maybe an accountant or whatever, and say, yeah, we're going to sign you and put you in the minor leagues. Well, are you going to be able to hold runners? Are you going to be able to field your position? Are you going to be able to do all the other things that every other pro pitcher knows how to do? There's much more nuance, and there's much more strategy and in-game knowledge required to be just a competent pitcher who, when you get a comebacker, you know what to do with it. When you get a bunt, you know where to throw it. And the thing with knuckleballs is you get more awkward swings, and you get a lot more chances to field your position as a pitcher. You'll get more ground balls than a regular conventional pitcher will. So the question is, how well do you field your position? How well can you hold runners? Because they're going to steal more because you throw so slow. That knuckleball's 70 miles per hour, 65. They're going to steal a lot more. Can you hold them on? That's actually a lot harder than you think it is. So there's the why don't kids develop into knuckleballers from scratch track, and then there's the pluck old guy off the street track. Why didn't either of those tracks work? Well, because they end up just choosing conventional pitchers who can do all that other stuff. Like my friend, he was an accomplished pro pitcher, made it to the major leagues. So they know he can hold runners, he can field his position. If he has a bad game, he can mentally adjust and come back to the next one. He can deal with the ups and downs of baseball. He knows how to condition himself. He knows how to do a routine. He knows all the physical and mental preparation stuff that is so important in being a pro. They know you've got all that foundational stuff covered. So now they know that if the very least, they can throw you out in a half season of minor league games and say, we know he's going to do everything else. He'll field a position, he'll hold runners, he knows the game, he'll be able to compete and do all these things. Mentally, he'll be fine. Physically, he'll be fine. He'll be prepared to pitch. We completely trust that he's a pro baseball player, the same as everyone else. The only thing we have to worry about is him throwing good quality knuckleballs. And we have no idea whether that'll happen or not. Most knuckleballers don't succeed because it's so hard to throw consistently well. And even if you throw it consistently well, it's so hard to throw strikes with it. And it's very much on or off from one day to the next. But again, how many Tim Wakefields are there? How many R.A. Dickies have there been? Even the guys who have cracked the big leagues in the last couple of years, like Eddie Gamboa, who threw a really hard, terrifying knuckleball, didn't hang around very long. And that was a very accomplished pitcher. So it's extremely hard, and the only people that can really entrust with that task are seasoned pros who couldn't make it conventionally but spent their whole lives being pitchers, who are now ready to try and tinker with this new test. One of the classic baseball books is Ball 4 by Jim Bouton, who was an accomplished pitcher of the Yankees when he came up, hurt his arm and tried to come back as a knuckleballer, and he battles with all this stuff. He talks about in the game how he's learning to be a knuckleball pitcher in spring training, and his coaches are giving him flack. They're like, hey, you got to mix in a curveball every now and then. You got to mix in a fastball. Keep him honest. And he's like, I can't do that. If I start doing that, it screws up my mechanics. I've got to just go all in with the knuckleball. If I can't go all in with the knuckleball, then I'm not going to be able to do this. It's not going to work. And if you want to get a little more insider knowledge of how this is done, I highly suggest you pick up Ball 4. It's one of my favorite baseball reads of all time. I read it once a year because It's spiritually important to me. I connect with him and I connect with the game that way. But he talks about the trials and tribulations and the challenges of throwing a knuckleball, and all the different people are like, what are you doing? Do it this way, do it that way. You got to be, and he fights against it and he's trying to figure it out himself, and you can feel how hard it is. And other pitchers like my friend who've tried this have the exact same experience. It's incredibly hard. It's incredibly humbling. You feel like the stupid guy out there who's like tossing it in, whereas everyone else is firing it in. And it's just got a lot of mental and physical ups and downs. Hopefully this video was interesting. This is my perspective of why I discourage young pitchers from throwing knuckleballs, and why it doesn't make sense for young pitchers to start their developmental track being an exclusive knuckleballer, and why it also doesn't make sense for us to pluck a civilian even with a decent knuckleball and throw them into the pro game. Why it just doesn't work that way. So if you have any questions or just want to have a discussion, leave it in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.